paralyzed Korean Mafia boss is abandoned on his first date, until a single mother and her daughter step in. The clock struck 7:47 p.m., and Kim Do-hyun understood with crystalline certainty that she wasn't coming. Around him, the café buzzed with the comfortable murmur of couples sharing desserts and friends laughing over wine. He sat alone at a table designed for two, his custom-tailored suit sharp enough to command a boardroom, his wheelchair positioned at an angle that allowed him to survey the entire establishment, a habit born from years of surviving in a world where trust was currency and betrayal was inflation. The man who controlled millions in illicit trade, who could end careers with a phone call and lives with a gesture, felt the unfamiliar sting of humiliation. Not from the stood-up date itself. He'd long ago accepted that his injury made him invisible to most, pitted by the rest. No, the humiliation came from hoping, from allowing himself, for one reckless evening, to believe that someone might see past the wheels and the whispers, past the carefully cultivated reputation that preceded him like a ghost. A waitress approached with practiced sympathy in her eyes, the kind that made his jaw tighten. "Can I get you anything else, sir?" Translation: "Are you ready to leave and stop taking up valuable table space?" He was about to dismiss her when movement caught his peripheral vision. A flash of sunshine yellow, bobbing through the tables with the fearless trajectory of childhood innocence. "Mister, why do you look so sad?" The question hit him like a bullet, unexpected, perfectly aimed, devastating in its simplicity. He looked down into the face of a little girl, perhaps 7 years old, with her hair styled in 2 puffs and wearing a dress the color of optimism itself. She held a stuffed elephant under one arm and tilted her head with the kind of genuine concern that adults had long ago learned to fake or abandon entirely. Before he could formulate a response, a woman rushed forward, breathless and apologetic. "Maya, I'm so sorry, The woman stopped mid-sentence, her eyes meeting his. Do-hyun watched the recognition flicker across her face, not of who he was specifically, but of what, a man alone, clearly stood up, clearly hurting beneath his controlled expression. Erica Coleman looked nothing like the polished women Do-hyun typically encountered in his world of designer labels and calculated appearances. Her clothes were clean but worn, her sneakers scuffed from endless hours on her feet, her hands rough from work that required more than typing emails. But her eyes held something he hadn't seen in years. Authentic human warmth without agenda, empathy without transaction. If you value the hard work behind these stories, hitting that subscribe button would mean so much to me. Also, before we begin, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's continue. Erica Coleman's life is a mathematical equation with no solution. 3 jobs barely cover rent and groceries. The $23,000 hospital bill from Maya's emergency appendectomy 6 months ago might as well be $23 million. She stopped answering calls from debt collectors, stopped hoping for anything beyond tomorrow's survival. When her daughter insisted on approaching the sad man in the wheelchair at the cafe, Erica felt mortification so acute it tasted like copper. But the man, impossibly handsome despite the shadows under his eyes, impeccably dressed despite sitting alone, had looked at Maya with something approaching wonder. He'd answered her questions about his wheelchair with patience, even cracking the ghost of a smile when she asked if it went fast like a race car. Erica had apologized repeatedly, dragged Maya away, and assumed she'd never think of him again. She was profoundly wrong. For days later, a man in an expensive suit appeared at the diner where Erica worked the morning shift. He ordered nothing, simply placed a business card on her section's counter, and said, "Mr. Kim would like to discuss an employment opportunity." The card was heavy stock, minimalist design. Kim Do-hyun, CEO, Biko Enterprises. Below it, a phone number and an address in one of Chicago's most exclusive neighborhoods. Erica's first instinct was to throw it away. Her second was to laugh at the absurdity. Her third, the one that won after she checked her bank balance and found it $47 short of covering next week's groceries, was to call the number. The voice that answered was professional, female, efficient. "Mr. Kim has been expecting your call, Ms. Coleman. Would tomorrow at 2 p.m. work for an interview?" "I work until 3, Erica said, hating how her voice caught on the admission. "The position would require you to quit your current employment. The starting salary is $180,000 annually, plus benefits and housing assistance. Mr. Kim is prepared to advance you the first month's salary today as a signing bonus, should you accept." The phone nearly slipped from Erica's hand. $180,000. The number hung in the air like a hallucination. She made $31,000 across her 3 jobs before taxes. This had to be a scam, or worse, some kind of proposition she absolutely wouldn't entertain regardless of her desperation. What exactly would I be doing? Erica asked carefully. Executive assistant to Mr. Kim, managing his schedule, correspondence, and personal affairs. The role requires discretion, loyalty, and the ability to handle high-pressure situations. Personal affairs. There it was, the catch that confirmed her suspicions. I'm not interested in that kind of position, Erica said, ice creeping into her voice despite her situation. The woman on the phone actually laughed, a genuine sound of surprise. Ms. Coleman, I assure you Mr. Kim's requirements are strictly professional. He needs someone organized, intelligent, and unintimidated by his particular business environment. Your background check showed 3 jobs held simultaneously for 6 months, 0 missed payments before your daughter's medical crisis, and a bachelor's degree in business administration you earned while working full-time. You're precisely what he's looking for. He ran a background check on me? Outrage warred with a strange flattery. Mr. Kim is thorough. Will you accept the interview? Erica thought of Maya's worn shoes, of the eviction notice she'd hidden in her underwear drawer, of the grocery store clerk who'd started recognizing her as the coupon lady. She thought of the man in the wheelchair who'd looked at her daughter like she was something precious rather than an annoyance. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., she heard herself say. The address led to a high-rise that seemed to scrape the clouds themselves. The lobby was all marble and modern art, the kind of place where Erica's discount store blouse felt like a spotlight announcing her poverty. But the receptionist greeted her by name, and the elevator ride to the penthouse suite was so smooth she barely felt the ascent. Do-hyun waited in an office that overlooked the city like a kingdom. He'd positioned his wheelchair behind a massive desk, and Erica noticed how the setup minimized his disability without hiding it, a statement of confidence that intrigued her despite herself. Ms. Coleman, he said, gesturing to a chair. Thank you for coming. Why me? Erica asked, deciding against pretense. You could hire someone with actual executive assistant experience. Someone who knows your world. That's precisely why I don't want them. Do-hyun's fingers steepled beneath his chin. My world, as you put it, is full of people who see my wheelchair first and calculate how to exploit that perceived weakness. You and your daughter saw a person. That kind of genuine humanity is rarer than you might think in my circles. What circles would those be exactly? Erica pressed. The job posting had been vague. The salary was suspicious. Her instincts screamed that this beautiful office and generous offer concealed something darker. Do-hyun regarded her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone making a calculated risk. I run an import-export business, Ms. Coleman. Some of those imports exist in gray areas of the law. Some are considerably darker than gray. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending I'm a legitimate businessman, but I will promise you this. Your role would keep you away from anything illegal. You'd manage my public-facing operations, my schedule, my legitimate investments. You'd never be asked to participate in or witness anything that could jeopardize your safety or legal status. Erica should have stood up and left. She should have reported this conversation to someone somewhere. Instead, she heard herself ask, "Why are you telling me this?" Because I need someone I can trust, and trust requires honesty. Do-hyun's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Your daughter's hospital bill is $23,400. If you accept this position, I'll pay it off today. Not as a loan, as a signing bonus separate from your salary. Your daughter will have comprehensive health insurance through my company. You'll have an apartment in a safe neighborhood with good schools. In exchange, I need your discretion, your competence, and your word that you'll never use what you learn about my business against me. The offer was impossible. The offer was everything. The offer was a deal with the devil wearing a $1,000 suit. I need to think about it, Erica whispered. Of course. Do-hyun slid a folder across the desk. Contract details. Take it home, read it carefully. But Ms. Coleman, he waited until she met his eyes. I'm not a good man. I won't pretend otherwise. But I protect what's mine with everything I have. If you work for me, you and Maya become mine to protect. In my world, that means something. Erica took the folder with shaking hands. That night, she laid it on her kitchen table next to the pile of medical bills and the eviction notice and the empty refrigerator. She thought about pride and pragmatism, about the luxury of moral absolutism when you weren't watching your child go hungry. She thought about the way Do-hyun had smiled at Maya's questions about race car wheelchairs. Sometimes survival isn't about the choices you want to make. Sometimes it's about the choices you can live with. And sometimes, rarely, dangerously, it's about recognizing that the person offering you a lifeline might need saving just as desperately as you do, just in different ways. The next morning, Erica called the number and accepted the position. She didn't yet understand that she wasn't just accepting a job. She was accepting a role in a story that would redefine everything she thought she knew about strength, survival, and the unexpected places where grace can bloom. Erica's first day shattered every expectation. The office was actually a legitimate import business with warehouses, shipping manifests, and employees who treated Do-hyun with a respect that bordered on reverence. Her actual duties were mundane: managing schedules, coordinating meetings, handling correspondence for his legal ventures. Nothing illegal touched her desk. But she wasn't naive. She saw the men who visited after hours, recognized the body language of soldiers reporting to a general. She noticed how conversations stopped when she entered rooms, how certain files were kept in offices she didn't have access to. Do-hyun had promised to keep her separate from his darker business, and he was keeping that promise, but the shadows were always visible at the edges of her fluorescent-lit world. What surprised her more was Do-hyun himself. The cold, controlled man from the interview revealed unexpected dimensions. He asked about Maya's first day at her new school. He noticed when Erica wore herself thin across too many tasks and redistributed the workload. When a legitimate business partner made a casually dismissive comment about Do-hyun's wheelchair during a meeting, Erica watched her boss's face remain perfectly neutral. But 2 weeks later, that partner lost a major contract. The message was clear: disrespect has consequences. They developed a rhythm. Erica learned to read Do-hyun's moods from the set of his shoulders, the tempo of his fingers on his wheelchair's armrest. Do-hyun learned that Erica's stubbornness was just pride wearing a different name, that her fierce independence came from years of having no one to depend on but herself. Maya bridged the distance between them faster than either adult could. She'd visit the office after school, doing homework in Erica's workspace, occasionally rolling herself into Do-hyun's office in his spare wheelchair. He kept two, to tell him about her day. Do-hyun, who'd spent 3 years believing his life held nothing but business and survival, found himself genuinely interested in second-grade drama and spelling tests. "Why don't you have kids, Mr. Kim?" Maya asked one afternoon with the bluntness only children possess. Do-hyun's hands stilled on his keyboard. Erica, standing in the doorway to collect her daughter, felt her heart clench at the expression that crossed his face. Loss and longing so naked it hurt to witness. "My injury happened before I could have a family," Do-hyun said quietly. "I thought that door had closed." "Doors don't close," Maya said with the certainty of someone who'd never yet met an insurmountable obstacle. "Sometimes you just have to find the special key." Later, after Maya had fallen asleep in the car and Erica had returned to retrieve her forgotten backpack, she found Do-hyun still in his office, staring out at the city lights. "Thank you," he said without turning. "For what?" "For letting her be herself around me. Most people teach their children to be uncomfortable around disabilities, even when they think they're teaching acceptance. You've taught her something better." Erica crossed to stand beside his wheelchair. "She sees people, not labels. I think that's the one thing I've managed to do right. It's not the only thing." Do-hyun finally looked at her, and Erica felt something shift in the air between them. A recognition that this arrangement had stopped being purely transactional somewhere along the way. "You're good at this job. Better than I expected. Did you think I'd fail?" Erica asked, amusement coloring her voice. "I thought you'd quit. Most people can't handle proximity to my world, even the legitimate parts." "I'm not most people." Erica surprised herself by reaching out to adjust a file folder on his desk, a gesture of comfortable familiarity that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. "Besides, you're not as scary as you think you are. Maya's gotten you figured out. You're just a softie in expensive suits." Do-hyun actually laughed, a sound so rare his assistant later swore she'd heard thunder indoors. "Don't let that reputation get around. It's bad for business." But the easy moment couldn't last. The shadows that Erica had been carefully avoiding began creeping closer. She started noticing increased security around the building, saw Do-hyun taking meetings that left him tense and withdrawn. His second-in-command, a man named Han Ji-woo who'd always treated Erica with cold courtesy, began appearing more frequently, his eyes assessing her in ways that made her skin crawl. The reckoning came on a Thursday evening. Erica was working late, finalizing reports for a quarterly review, when she heard raised voices from Do-hyun's office. She'd learned not to eavesdrop, but something in the tone, the barely restrained fury, made her pause. "You're making us weak," Ji-woo's voice carried through the door. "The families are starting to question your judgment. First the wheelchair, now this, playing house with some woman and her brat? This isn't who you are, Do-hyun. Who I am is not your concern." Do-hyun's voice was ice over steel. "What I am is still your boss. I'd remember that if I were you. For how much longer? The families respect strength, not sentiment. You think they don't notice you leaving early for a child's school play? You think they don't see how distracted you've become?" Erica's blood ran cold. Maya's school play had been last week, a chaotic production of The Three Little Pigs, where her daughter played pig number 2 with enthusiastic abandon. Do-hyun had asked to leave work early, claiming a doctor's appointment. She'd later learned from Maya's excited retelling that Mr. Kim came and he clapped so loud, Mommy. He'd lied to his organization about where he was going. For Maya, "My personal life is my own," Do-hyun said, each word precise. "Unless you're suggesting you'd like to make it your professional concern, I'm suggesting that you've let your injury make you soft. You've let a woman and child into your life because you're lonely, and it's compromising everything we've built." The sound that followed, furniture scraping, something hitting a wall, made Erica jump. Then Do-hyun's voice, low and lethal. "Get out. And Ji-woo, if you ever refer to them that way again, I'll show you exactly how soft I've become." Erica barely made it back to her desk before Ji-woo stormed out, his face flushed with rage. He stopped when he saw her, and his expression shifted into something calculating that made her stomach drop. "Ms. Coleman," he said with artificial pleasantness. "Working late, I see. How dedicated." She didn't respond, didn't trust her voice. Ji-woo smiled, a shark's expression, and left. When Erica finally entered Do-hyun's office, she found him at the window, his shoulders rigid with tension. "How much did you hear?" he asked without turning. "Enough." Erica moved closer, her concern overriding her usual professional distance. "Is this going to be a problem? Is Maya in danger because of me working here?" "No." Do-hyun spun his wheelchair to face her, and his expression held absolute conviction. "No one touches my people. That's a line that doesn't get crossed." "Your people," Erica repeated softly. "Is that what we are? What else would you be?" Do-hyun's voice dropped, vulnerable in a way she'd never heard. "You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever, Erica. Purpose beyond survival. A reason to leave the office before midnight. Someone who asks about my day and actually cares about the answer. Do you have any idea how long it's been since I had that?" Erica felt tears burning behind her eyes. "You've given us something too. Safety. Stability. A future that doesn't involve drowning in debt and fear. But if we're putting you at risk." "You're not." Do-hyun reached out, catching her hand in his. "They're testing me. Ji-woo thinks my injury made me weak. Thinks that caring about someone is a vulnerability to exploit. He's wrong. Dead wrong." But the certainty in his voice couldn't quite mask the truth they both recognized. In Do-hyun's world, love was vulnerability. Attachment was a target painted on everyone you cared about. And Ji-woo had just discovered exactly where to aim. That night, Erica lay awake in her new apartment, safe, comfortable, everything she'd dreamed of, and wondered if she'd traded one kind of drowning for another. Only this time, the water was darker and the depths were full of monsters she couldn't see. And somewhere across the city, Do-hyun made phone calls to his most trusted people, putting protections in place that Erica wouldn't discover until much later. Because he'd spoken truth in his office, no one touched his people. But he'd also understood something that would haunt him in the coming weeks. In trying to save Erica and Maya from drowning, he might have pulled them into depths far more dangerous than debt ever was. The photograph arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped under the door of Do-hyun's office like a death warrant on glossy paper. It showed Maya in her yellow dress, laughing at recess, utterly unaware of the telephoto lens capturing her joy. On the back, written in red marker that looked deliberately blood-like, "Such a precious little thing. Would be a shame if anything happened to her." Do-hyun stared at the image for exactly 15 seconds before his carefully constructed control shattered. His hands shook as he reached for his phone, as he barked orders to his security team, as the full weight of his worst fear crystallized into terrible clarity. Loving someone had indeed made him vulnerable. No, he corrected himself. Loving someone had made them vulnerable. Within an hour, Maya's school was locked down with plainclothes security Do-hyun had positioned there. Within 2 hours, Erica was in his office, her face drained of color as she stared at the photograph of her daughter. "Who?" she whispered. "Why?" "Han Ji-woo." Do-hyun forced the name through clenched teeth. "He's challenging my leadership by threatening what I care about. It's a strategy as old as organized crime itself. Prove the leader is weak, then take his place." "What does he want?" Erica's voice cracked. "What do we do?" Do-hyun rolled his wheelchair to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "You and Maya move into my penthouse tonight. I have security there that's impenetrable. She doesn't go to school until this is resolved. You don't leave my sight. For how long? As long as it takes to end this." The promise in Do-hyun's voice was absolute and terrifying. Ji-woo made a miscalculation. He thought threatening Maya would make me negotiate, make me step down to protect her. He's wrong. Threatening her just determined how he dies. Erica recoiled slightly. "Dies? You're going to kill him." He threatened a child. Do-hyun's expression was stone. "My child, for all practical purposes. There's no outcome where he survives that." The words should have horrified Erica. She should have grabbed Maya and run, should have returned to her 3 minimum wage jobs and crushing debt. Anything but staying in a world where murder was discussed as casually as quarterly earnings. But when she looked at Do-hyun, at the protective fury radiating from every line of his body, at the absolute conviction that no harm would reach Maya while he drew breath, she recognized something profound. This was love. Brutal, uncompromising, forged in a darker world than she'd ever known, but love nonetheless. "Okay," she heard herself say. "We'll move in tonight." Do-hyun's penthouse was less a home and more a fortress disguised as luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Chicago like a war room overseeing a battlefield. Security cameras covered every angle. The doors had locks that looked like they belonged in a bank vault. Maya, blessedly oblivious to the danger, thought the whole thing was an adventure. "Are we having a sleepover with Mr. Kim?" she asked, bouncing on the guest room bed that was bigger than Erica's old apartment. "Something like that," Erica managed, tucking her daughter in with shaking hands. Later, after Maya had fallen asleep, Erica found Do-hyun in his office, surrounded by monitors showing various security feeds. He looked exhausted, the shadows under his eyes darker than she'd ever seen. "You should rest," she said softly. "Can't. Not while he's out there." Erica crossed the room and did something she'd never done before. She knelt beside his wheelchair, putting them at eye level. "Thank you," she whispered, "for protecting her, for caring about her." "Erica." Do-hyun's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized was falling. "I would burn this entire city down before I let anyone hurt her. Or you." The kiss happened like inevitability, like 2 stars finally collapsing into each other after circling too long. It was gentle despite the violence simmering in the air, tender despite the threat looming over them. When they pulled apart, Erica saw her own revelation reflected in Do-hyun's eyes. This had stopped being about employment or survival weeks ago. "I love you," Do-hyun said, the words raw and unprecedented. "I didn't plan to. I didn't think I could anymore. But I love you both, and I will end anyone who tries to take you from me." "I know," Erica whispered. "I love you too, and that terrifies me." "Good," Do-hyun said with grim humor. "Fear means you understand what we're dealing with." The attack came 3 days later, not as a direct assault, but as information warfare. Ji-woo released documents to the police suggesting Do-hyun's organization was planning a major illegal operation. The evidence was fabricated, but convincing enough to trigger an investigation. The message was clear: back down or watch your empire crumble under legal scrutiny. Do-hyun's response was methodical and merciless. He activated contacts in law enforcement who owed him favors, producing counter-evidence that painted Ji-woo as a rogue operator trying to frame his boss. He cut off Ji-woo's financial resources, turning suppliers and distributors against him. He systematically dismantled every alliance Ji-woo had built over 15 years in the organization. But the masterstroke came from an unexpected source: Erica. "Your legitimate businesses," she said one evening, studying the financial reports she'd been compiling. "They're actually quite profitable. What if you didn't need the illegal operations anymore?" Do-hyun looked up from his laptop. "What are you suggesting?" "An exit strategy. Go legitimate, use your illegal resources to crush Ji-woo, then close those doors permanently. You'd lose some income, but your legal ventures could absorb that within 2 years. And more importantly, she met his eyes. You could have a real future. One where Maya isn't growing up around constant threats. The idea was radical. The idea was impossible. The idea was exactly what Do-hyun hadn't known he was looking for. You're asking me to give up everything I've built, he said slowly. I'm asking you to choose what you want to build next, Erica countered. You said loving us gave you purpose beyond survival. This is what that looks like. Choosing a future where we're not constantly looking over our shoulders. Do-hyun was quiet for a long time. Then, it would take years to transition fully. And I'd still need to handle Ji-woo first. I know. People in my world don't retire cleanly. There would be resistance, challenges, probably violence. I know that too. Erica moved to stand beside his wheelchair. But you're the strongest person I've ever met, Do-hyun. Not because you built an empire. Because you're willing to tear it down for what matters more. The final confrontation happened not in a dramatic shootout, but in a conference room. Do-hyun called a meeting of the organization's stakeholders, the families who'd worked with him for years, and laid out his ultimatum. Ji-woo had threatened a child to undermine leadership. That kind of dishonorable behavior couldn't be tolerated in any organization claiming to have rules. He's forced us to choose, Do-hyun said, his voice carrying absolute authority despite his seated position. Do we remain an organization with principles, or do we become animals who target children? Because I won't lead the latter. If that's who we are, you should kill me now and install Ji-woo as my replacement. The silence that followed was deafening. Then one of the older bosses spoke. When I started in this business, we had honor. We didn't touch families. We didn't target kids. He turned to Ji-woo with undisguised contempt. You dishonored all of us. The vote was unanimous. Ji-woo was exiled from the organization, his assets seized, his reputation destroyed. He left Chicago within 48 hours, and Do-hyun's contacts ensured he'd never build power anywhere else. It was a death of a different kind, professional execution instead of physical, but just as final. The crisis was over. But for Erica and Do-hyun, something new was beginning. 18 months later, Erica stood in the same penthouse that had once been a fortress, now transformed into an actual home. Maya's artwork covered the refrigerator. Family photos lined the hallways. The security monitors were still there, some habits die hard, but they shared wall space with Maya's spelling tests and Erica's framed business degree. Do-hyun's transition to legitimate business had been brutal but successful. He divested the illegal operations systematically, absorbing the financial hit in exchange for freedom from constant threat. His import company now focused exclusively on legal trade, his investments in real estate and technology were thriving, and his reputation had shifted from dangerous crime boss to ruthless but honest businessman. The families had resisted initially, but Do-hyun's ultimatum had been clear. Evolve or end our partnership. Most had chosen evolution. Those who hadn't found themselves facing legal troubles, as Do-hyun quietly fed information to authorities. A final cleaning of house that ensured his new life wouldn't be contaminated by his old one. Mommy, Mr. Kim taught me how to do wheelies. Maya burst into the kitchen, her face flushed with excitement. He did what? Erica spun to find Do-hyun rolling in behind their daughter, looking uncharacteristically sheepish. Safe wheelies, he amended. With safety equipment. In a controlled environment. Erica tried to look stern and failed completely, laughter bubbling up instead. You're impossible. Both of you. Maya hugged Do-hyun's neck with the casual affection of a child who'd never known him as anyone but family. Can we watch a movie tonight? The one with the racing cars. After dinner and homework, Do-hyun negotiated, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Deal. Deal. After Maya ran off to start her homework, Erica moved to stand beside Do-hyun, her hand finding his shoulder in the comfortable intimacy of long familiarity. Happy, she asked softly. Terrified, Do-hyun admitted. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for this to be revealed as temporary. I've spent so long in survival mode that peace feels like a trap. It's not a trap. Erica knelt beside his wheelchair, taking his hands. It's what happens when you stop running from connection and start building toward it. You taught me that. I taught you. Do-hyun raised an eyebrow. You're the one who walked into my life and decided I was worth saving. We saved each other, Erica corrected. I was drowning in debt and hopelessness. You were drowning in isolation and bitterness. We were both looking at versions of death, mine slow from poverty, yours slower from loneliness. We pulled each other out. Do-hyun brought her hands to his lips, kissing each knuckle with reverent care. I love you, and I love the life we're building, even when it terrifies me. Good, Erica said, echoing his words from months ago. Terror means you understand how precious this is. Later that evening, with Maya asleep between them during movie night, she'd made it halfway through before exhaustion claimed her. Do-hyun reflected on the strange mathematics of his life. He'd lost the use of his legs and thought he'd lost everything. He'd built an empire from ruthlessness and believed it was all he'd ever have. He'd been abandoned at a café and considered it confirmation of his unworthiness. But a little girl in a yellow dress had asked him why he looked sad, and in answering that question, Do-hyun had discovered something his empire never taught him. True strength isn't about control or fear or power over others. True strength is allowing yourself to love and be loved, especially when that love makes you vulnerable. It's choosing protection over domination, choosing partnership over isolation, choosing to build something tender in a world that rewarded hardness. His wheelchair hadn't made him weak. His isolation had. His injury hadn't ended his life. His belief that he had nothing left to offer beyond money and fear had. Erica and Maya hadn't saved him despite his disability. They'd saved him because they saw past it to the person still capable of growth, still capable of change, still capable of becoming better than his circumstances suggested. And in return, he'd given them safety and stability, yes, but more importantly, he'd given them proof that broken things can be rebuilt into something beautiful. That desperate circumstances don't define your future. That the person who looks finished might just be waiting for someone brave enough to ask why they look so sad. Do-hyun looked at his small, strange, precious family and understood finally what Maya had meant all those months ago about doors and special keys. The door to happiness and connection hadn't closed when his spine shattered. He'd just been looking for the wrong key, trying to open it with money, power, control. The special key was simpler and harder than that. It was vulnerability. It was allowing yourself to be seen. It was accepting that needing people doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And being human, Do-hyun had learned, was the bravest and strongest thing anyone could choose to be. In the end, Kim Do-hyun and Erica Coleman taught each other what survival really means. Not just enduring, but choosing to stay soft in a hard world. Not just protecting yourself, but allowing yourself to be protected. Not just giving help, but having the courage to accept it. True power isn't about controlling everything. It's about caring so deeply about something that you're willing to surrender control to preserve it. And sometimes the greatest strength is admitting you can't do it alone, that you need someone to ask why you look sad and to stay long enough to help you find the answer.